When Oprah became famous, the tabloids pursued Watts and offered to pay him for the story of their love affair, including details of their drug use. He called Oprah, said that he didn't want to talk, but he was strapped for cash. He said, "Look at it from my point of view. I don't want to talk to these people, but I sure could use some money. I got kids, I got bills, but I'm a friend to you. What can we work out?" What a winner. What a winner, 2 times his wife. And then he has the gall to come tottering over to Oprah and being like, "Hey, they're knocking at my door. I need cash. I don't want to." Don't get me wrong. I'd love to keep my mouth shut about the fact that I cheated on my wife with not one but 2 women. But I got bills to pay. I got kids. I need the money. Can we work something out? What a loser. This person's walking through life with a moral compass that is so off, it's like pointing straight to hell. That Christmas, 1989, Gayle King delivered a gift-wrapped box to Tim in Baltimore, and Tim called me down on the Eastern Shore where I was staying with my parents. He said, "Oprah came through. Big time. She really came through. $50,000 cash. Get your butt back here. We're going out for New Year's Eve." Hello, how are you? Welcome to my channel. My name is Cheer Denise, and we have another chapter from Oprah by Kitty Kelley. We're on chapter 6 now, and it's going to be a long chapter like yesterday. But yesterday we left off with Oprah in literal tears. She had been demoted from the news desk because she was just not professional enough for them at that point in her career. She was only 22. She'd come from Nashville. She did not know how to carry herself at that prestigious position, sitting next to somebody who'd been doing the news for years. Now, she was sitting next to a man named Jerry Turner. Jerry Turner was like the king of local news. But then Oprah bebopped in, and she didn't write her own copy. She didn't even read the copy that other people had written for her. So she'd plop herself down at the news desk and say things like Canada 3 times in one newscast, or Barbados was now Barbados, according to Oprah. And she would mispronounce words like blasé and say blaze instead. So because she would never read any of the copy before she sat down, she would just say crazy things. And she would also kind of cut into the newscast and, wow, that's wild, while he's trying to read the news. And so this level of unprofessionalism might have worked in Nashville, but it wasn't going to work in a larger market. So they demoted her. But she still had 3 years of her contract to work out. And while she wanted to leave, her family and friends were telling her to stay. This is a big opportunity. And so she stayed, but she was miserable. She was humiliated to the point that her hair was falling out. She was so stressed out. People would see her in the parking lot weeping so hard she couldn't even turn her car on. She was eating way too much because she was sad and stressed out and discouraged. So her professional life was falling apart, but then her private life was really difficult too because she had a boyfriend, this Jewish boyfriend, and they really liked each other. They got along great, had a lot of fun together. But then he moved to New York City and found a new girlfriend, and so then she had been dumped. So her professional life is falling apart. Her personal life is falling apart. Her hair is falling out. She's binge eating. She's gaining all this weight. So it was not great. And she's approached by the station manager. And they have just purchased this franchise called People Are Talking. And this is daytime television. This is, according to Oprah, the lowest of the low. Nothing could be more humiliating than being on during daytime when no one's watching but the housewives, And she's being asked to be on this daytime show with a guy named Richard Scher. And she is distraught. I mean, this show is going to be dumb. It's going to be gimmicky. It's going to have like hokey topics. Like, she just thinks it's going to be so dumb. She cannot even. But at the same time, she's been going to cockatoo parties at the zoo. So could there really be a lower place to fall? And they tell her, look, we will make sure that you're a success. We, the station, need this to be a success because we want to go up against the Phil Donahue show, which was the daytime television show. And they said, we want to create a little competition for Phil Donahue, and you are a woman. We think you can do this. We're going to help you. We're going to, book interesting guests. We're not putting you out to dry. Like, we need you. We want you. Come on. And the reality is it was either this or Oprah did nothing. She agrees, but in tears. And that's where we left Oprah yesterday. So let's pick up in chapter 6 today. The book says that Richard Scher cringed as he recalled the August 14th, 1978 debut of People Are Talking. "I still remember the headline in the Baltimore Sun," he said decades later. "A breath of hot, stale air." Television critics shredded the new morning talk show. They blasted Bill Baker for promising intelligent fare for stay-at-home moms and then delivering a mindless show about soap operas. They blasted Richard Scher for hogging airtime with an ego that swallowed up the co-host, the guests, and most of the furniture. They slammed the producers for a herky-jerky pace. People Are Talking sputtered into life yesterday like some sort of souped-up car with a rookie driver who has never used a clutch before. Only Oprah escaped the damning reviews. She was commended for a well-polished smile and handling the dialing for dollars segment with unusual grace, giving this tacky little gimmick about as much class as is possible. Still, Bill Carter issued a warning in the Baltimore Sun. A long run at this, and Oprah's image as a news reporter is not going to be helped. Oprah continued anchoring the news at noon, but she was no longer driven to become the Black Barbara Walters. She'd been so nervous the day before the talk show debut that she ate 3 payday candy bars and 5 chocolate chip cookies the size of pancakes. But after interviewing 2 actors from her favorite soap opera, All My Children, she felt that she'd finally found her place in television. She loved the talk show format. I used to watch Donahue to figure out how to do it. And she could hardly wait for the next show to interview men who had had plastic surgery to look like Elvis Presley. Obsessed with the concept of fame as a reflection of greatness, and having worshipped Diana Ross since she was 10 years old, Oprah saw People Are Talking as a gateway to celebrities, even lunatic Elvis wannabes. She used to come into the makeup room like a little girl and sit down on a stool while I was being made up and ask questions about people she was interested in, said Dick Maurice, the entertainment editor of the Las Vegas Sun and a frequent guest. She had this quest for information about stars. After the debut show, Oprah was the only one to walk off the set giddy with delight. "We live!" she yelled as she grabbed a glass of champagne and hugged Richard Scher, who was reeling with misgivings. The producers were also a little shaky. But Oprah was soaring. "I came off the air and I knew that was what I was supposed to do. This is it. This is what I was born to do. It just felt like breathing. It was the most natural process for me." Within a week, the Baltimore Sun agreed. "Oprah is rapidly proving that she was an excellent selection for a morning talk show host," wrote Bill Carter. "She simply looks very good in the morning talk format. She's low-key, but bright and attractive, and that combination works well over a morning cup of coffee." "It took us about 2 or 3 years to gel," said Richard Scher, the dominant partner to Oprah's second banana. "My afro was as big as hers." Quick and witty, Scher had been selected because he resembled Phil Donahue and might appeal to Donahue's female audience, which Scher never disputed, even given a chance. "He was the talent," joked Oprah. "Just ask him." As a Southern black woman who shrank from confrontation and described herself as a people-pleaser, she accommodated her cocky co-host and gave his ego a wide berth. She had learned from her bruising debacle with Jerry Turner and was determined to make this partnership work. "We were very close," recalled Scher. "I'll never work with anyone again like that. We knew what each other was thinking. I once took her to the hospital because she had chest pains, and she put me down as next of kin. She had her own pretzel and potato chip drawer in our house. She'd jog up, we'd hear the door open, and the drawer open, and we'd know. Ope was there. She was a close friend of my wife Annabelle, and the kids. She used to call me her best girlfriend." "He taught me how to be Jewish," said Oprah. "He also taught me to swear." "Oprah and Richard had a very close relationship," said Barbara Ham, an associate producer for People Are Talking. "They were like brother and sister, although they had creative disagreements about what guests should be on the show and the line of questioning. She preferred movie stars, rock stars, and soap opera stars. He wanted government officials and corporate moguls. She asked questions that made him squirm." "Oprah liked to have fun," Ham said. "Get the audience into the show." Richard wasn't so sure. He didn't want to lose control. During one show, she got the audience literally dancing in the aisles. It was wild. And it worked. Unlike her co-host, Oprah was not overly concerned about her professional image, nor was she afraid to ask naive questions and look silly, even undignified, on occasion. She exercised with manic fitness guru Richard Simmons, danced with ethnic dancers, and interviewed a prostitute who had killed a client. She also decorated cakes, basted turkeys, and bobbed for apples. When Richard Scher entered into a ponderous discussion about television journalism with Frank Reynolds, the network anchor for ABC TV, Oprah sat on the couch listening, quietly. Her co-host was asking all these serious, boring questions, recalled Kelly Craig, a 19-year-old college student who later became a reporter on WTVJ in Miami. When it was Oprah's turn, she asked, "So, what does Frank Reynolds eat for dinner?" The young woman was impressed by Oprah's off-the-wall query because she felt that this is what the audience really wanted to know. Craig decided that if she ever got the chance to interview celebrities, she'd ask questions like Oprah's. Oprah had to be taught how to ask those questions, recalled Jane McClary, and you have to give the producer Sherry Burns credit for training Oprah to be Oprah. I can remember Sherry screaming and yelling and swearing at Oprah day after day. Oprah, what the hell were you thinking? What was in your head? Why didn't you ask that obvious question? You should always ask the first thing that comes to your mind. Just say it, say it, say it. Put your gut out there, girl. Don't be afraid. Just do it. One morning, People Are Talking booked conjoined twins as guests, 32-year-old women attached to the tops of their heads. They talked about going through life sharing everything. Oprah was intrigued. When one of you has to go to the bathroom at night, does the other one have to go with her? She asked. Richard's chair nearly fell off his perch. Oprah soon saw herself as the audience's back fence neighbor. I was dishing the dirt and meddling in other folks' business, which is what I do best. My acting came in handy. In acting, you lose your personality in favor of the character you're playing, but you use it to provide energy for your character. The same way on a talk show. I use it to concentrate on bringing the most out of my guests. She certainly did that with the poultry mogul, Frank Perdue. He was a difficult guest, almost surly, recalled Barbara Ham. Toward the end of the show, Oprah asked if it bothered him when people said he looked like a chicken. He took offense and asked if she minded people saying that she looked like a baboon. Oprah couldn't believe it. That he could make such a racist remark. Her chicken comment may have been a little rude, but to come back with that. We cut to a commercial. Oprah took it graciously and let it go. It was a stunning moment. Years later, when she became overly concerned about her public image and did not want to be seen as the victim of racism, Oprah denied the exchange had ever taken place. Frank Perdue did not call me a baboon, she told Vibe magazine in 1997, dismissing the story as an urban myth. Those at WJZ who saw the show, such as Barbara Ham and Marty Bass, could not explain her denial. Bob Leffer, a public relations executive in Baltimore, said, I forget now whether Frank Perdue called her a gorilla or a monkey or a baboon, but it was some kind of primate. I saw the show. I've never forgotten it. The incident was not covered in the Baltimore papers, and few tapes of People Are Talking exist. We used 2-inch tapes then, said Bill Baker. They were very expensive, so we reused them and recorded over everything. Now let me just say real quick. This goes back to what I was saying yesterday about how Oprah would love to be the victim, but she does not want people to pity her. She wants to be, like I said yesterday, a heroic victim. Somebody that you can look at and think, oh, I wish I could bear up under trauma the way she has. So she wants to be traumatized, but she doesn't want to be ruined. She wants to have had the worst experience you could ever hope to have, but then remain the victor always. So to make it seem as though somebody said something that could have cut her or hurt her feelings or just been blatantly unkind and rude, she doesn't want to ever seem as though she's capable of being cut. WJZ's essayist Mike Olisker mentioned the Frank Perdue show in his book about television news, but the most indelible show was the one on which Oprah and Richard interviewed the famous fashion model Beverly Johnson. I like handsome, sexy men, she said. What's your ideal first date? Oprah asked. To be taken to a nice restaurant and to be wined and dined, and then have the man take me home. Yes. And give me an enema, she said. Richard's chair immediately broke for commercial. He and Oprah hooted about that remark for years, said Olisker. But at that moment, it was another reminder for Cher. Could he talk to fashion models in the morning, risking direct conversations, and maintain credibility in the evening, reporting the news? Even in retirement, Cher was unapologetic about the tabloid-like shows that he and Oprah did on People Are Talking. When sex got big, we did shows on the man with the micropenis. We did the 30-minute orgasm. We did a lot of tough topics, the transsexual mother with brittle bone disease. One of their most exploitative shows became meaningful to Oprah and altered her way of thinking. The guest was a transsexual quadriplegic whose boyfriend's sperm was inserted into her sister. Wait, what? What did I just read? Okay, let me do that sentence again. The guest was a transsexual quadriplegic whose boyfriend's sperm was inserted into her sister. The quadriplegic became the biological aunt/uncle and also adopted the child. The show was criticized when it aired. Not surprisingly. But afterward, Oprah happened to see the child with the transsexual quadriplegic. It was just a moving thing, she said. I thought, this child will grow up with more love than most children. Before, I was one of those people who thought all homosexuals or anything like that were going to burn in hell because the scriptures said it. At the time, Oprah's strong Baptist beliefs were being tested because of her intimate involvement with Tim Watts, a married man with a young son and no intention of leaving his wife Donna. Enter the disc jockey era, okay? This is when she falls in love with a guy who was playing around town and was playing Oprah like a fiddle. And she is so hard up for him. I mean, she is just like, Tim Watts, I can't go on without him. And I'm like, girl, he is already going on without you. He's got another girlfriend. She's pregnant. He's got a wife. He's got kids. Anyway, the book says that Tim Watts was her first real love, according to Oprah's sister, Patricia Lee Lloyd. Oh, God, said Barbara Ham, remembering when Oprah was so depressed about Tim Watts breaking up with her that she could not get out of bed for 3 days. Arlene Weiner, the producer of People Are Talking, recalled the many, many tearful phone calls at 1, 2, 3, 4 in the morning. She's calling her friends at 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the morning to complain about a boy. Let me tell you, that would be an ex-friendship. I'm in the bed. You know what I'm saying? Like, we can talk at any time of the day, but I need to go to bed. The book goes on to say that the women on the production staff were sympathetic and did all they could to help Oprah, who was so obsessed with the 6'6" disc jockey that she once ran after him in her nightgown and threw herself on the hood of his car to try to make him stay with her. Another time, she blocked the front door of her apartment, screaming, "Don't leave! Don't leave!" and then threw his keys down the toilet. This was the story she later told Mike Wallace on 60 Minutes, attributing it to her more benign relationship with Bubba Taylor. As a side note, you can see that whole interview behind a paywall. I think you can see it on Paramount Plus. I didn't pay for it. But interestingly, you can also see this interview on YouTube, which is where I got my clips from yesterday. But this whole segment where she talks about how she was like totally in love with Bubba Taylor, and she used her obsession with Tim Watts as the backstory for her love with Bubba, that's cut from the YouTube edition. She gets right up into the point of talking about it, and then suddenly, we move on to a new topic. I'm telling you, the way the internet has been scrubbed of information that really tells the tale. But I think you can see the full thing, the full interview on 60 Minutes on Paramount Plus. So if you're interested. Anyway, after Watts walked out on her at 3 a.m., she called her best friend Gail King, who she knew had been in a similar situation. So she and Gail are both hanging out with married men, huh? For her, it wasn't throwing keys, it was checking the odometer, Oprah said of King. We have both done equally crazy things. I was on the hood, but Gail was on the bumper. So because she'd been there and lived in that place, she never judged me, but she was always there to listen and support me. The men on staff were not so tolerant of Oprah's hysterics. More than 2 decades after working with her, Dave Gossie, the director of People Are Talking, could not say one kind word about her. My mother told me that if you can't say anything nice about someone, say nothing at all, so I have nothing at all to say about Oprah Winfrey. Her volcanic affair with Tim Watts started in 1979 and crested and cratered for 5 years, even after she left Baltimore and moved to Chicago. Those years were the worst of my life, she said. I had bad man troubles. Being in love with a married man meant snatched hours, empty weekends, and lonely holidays that left her feeling desperate and forlorn. Poor thing. She had to spend Thanksgiving with us one year in 1980 because she had no place else to go, said Michael Fox, whose parents, Jim and Roberta Fox, were close to Richard and Annabelle Scher. We didn't know her until the Schers brought her to our house. I sat next to her at dinner. She ate so much food that night I couldn't believe it. I'd never even seen a human being eat as much as Oprah did. Paul Yates, WJZ's general manager, told me about her affair with Tim Watts and how miserable she was. Oprah did not mind being seen in public with a married man, but when she found out that he was also having an affair with a pretty young blonde, she said she felt devastated about being two-timed. How do you think his wife feels, Oprah? Two-timed. He had another mistress. Yes, he had a wife and children, but I really started feeling bad when he got another mistress. My affair with Tim started in 1980 in the midst of his with Oprah, said Judy Lee Coulter-Young, the daughter of Lloyd Coulter-Young, a former football star from the University of Maryland who played for the Baltimore Colts. Tim always said that Oprah couldn't know about us because it would ruin his business opportunities with her. He led me to believe that he was only seeing her to get a job at Channel 13. He did get a weekly Sunday show there for a while, so I didn't pay much attention at first. But then my friends started seeing Tim and Oprah having dinner at the Rusty Scupper when he was supposed to be with me. He played basketball for the station on Friday nights, so one night I walked into the gym, unexpectedly, just as they were finishing up a game. I saw Tim walk over to the bleachers with his cowboy boots and hand them to Oprah. He leaned over, whispered in her ear, and she started walking out with his boots. And then he saw me. What are you doing here? You need to go home right now. Right now. I'll be over later. That's when my jealousy of Oprah started. And then I found her credit cards in his pockets. She really took good care of him. He was always broke. But he returned the favor later by keeping his mouth shut. When Oprah became famous, the tabloids pursued Watts and offered to pay him for the story of their love affair, including details of their drug use. He called Oprah, said that he didn't want to talk, but he was strapped for cash, said Judy Coultrion. He said, "Look at it from my point of view. I don't want to talk to these people, but I sure could use some money. I got kids, I got bills, but I'm a friend to you. What can we work out?" That's what he told me. What a winner. What a winner. 2 times his wife. With this Judy person, with this Oprah person. And then he has the gall to come tottering over to Oprah and being like, "Hey, they're knocking at my door. I need cash. I don't want to." Don't get me wrong. I'd love to keep my mouth shut about the fact that I cheated on my wife with not 1 but 2 women. But I got bills to pay. I got kids. I need the money. Can we work something out? What a loser. Of the highest order. Like, if there was anything in Oprah that ever held a candle for him knocking at my door being like, "You better give me some money or I'm going to like spill all your details out into the streets. I don't want to, but I have to." Like, this person's walking through life with a moral compass that is so off, it's like pointing straight to hell. Did he also think he had to have a relationship with Oprah? Apparently he did, because that's what he told Judy. "I don't want to be in a relationship with her, but I have to for my business opportunities." Like, everything that he did wrong, he clearly had some kind of excuse already set up in his mind why, in a perfect world, I wouldn't have had to, but look at my circumstances. What a loser. But Judy goes on. That Christmas, 1989, Gayle King delivered a gift-wrapped box to Tim in Baltimore, and Tim called me down on the Eastern Shore where I was staying with my parents. He said, "Oprah came through. Big time. She really came through. $50,000 cash. Get your butt back here. We're going out for New Year's Eve." Naturally, I drove right back to Baltimore. Like Oprah, I was always available for Tim. Like her, I was always hanging out the window waiting for him to drive up in his blue Datsun. But she was smarter than me. She only wasted 5 years of her life on him. I wasted more. I did not intend to fall in love with a black man. Tim's very light skinned, so I told my friends he was mulatto. Okay. I nearly fainted the first time I saw a picture of Stedman Graham because he looked exactly like Tim. Tall, 6'5" or 6'6", handsome, with a mustache, very light skin. I thought, wow, Oprah has found a replica for Tim in Stedman. Okay, can we just talk about how nuts it is that he calls Oprah and is like, "I don't want to, but I might have to talk to them. I got bills, I got kids." And as soon as he gets the payout in cash, he calls the other girlfriend up and is like, "Let's go party. Oprah came through, $50,000, get in the car." Can you even imagine, what was it that Oprah saw in this loser? Other than the fact that I really think Oprah thought it was a feather in her cap to date somebody with lighter skin. I do not get her obsession with skin color. It is insane to me. And I guess a person can be like, "Well, you're just not, part of this culture." But do I need to be part of a culture to be like, that is whack, that you would value somebody more because of their lighter skin? Oprah's always complaining about the fact that the world treated her poorly, according to her, that her skin was darker. But then she does the same judgment calls with the guys that she dates, the lighter, the better. They're so crazy, the way, "I told my friends he was mulatto." What? He's high yellow. What are these terms, you guys? That New Year's Eve, Oprah's gift of $50,000 in cash financed her former lover's trip to Atlantic City with Judy Coultrion. What about those kids? What about those bills? Philly D, he'll think about that one tomorrow. Tim got a limousine and we had a big fancy hotel and front row seats in Remo, a black jazz club. At the time, I thought he was a great guy for not selling Oprah out, especially on drugs, which we did all the time in those days. Now that I'm older, I realize how much power Oprah had and what she could have done to him, so they probably both had nooses around each other's necks. I asked him what he would say to the tabloids that would make Oprah pay him $50,000 in hush money not to talk. That was big money then. I was wondering what he knew about her. He said that she did not want him to talk about her brother being gay, because her brother was gay and he later died of AIDS. It's no big deal to have a brother who's a homosexual, but apparently was to Oprah. Tim also said that he knew about some lesbian affairs or whatever, but that's all he said, and we never went into it. That is a lot of money to pay for somebody to be quiet. Who cares if you... She obviously wasn't ashamed that he was married. She'd go all around town with him. So it wasn't like, "Oh my gosh, I don't want anyone to know that I did that," She didn't care, I think he is right. I think that he had dirt on her. And the whole drug thing is wild to me because it was the 80s. I mean, everyone was on drugs, but I think everyone was on drugs and pretending they weren't. I think now people are all on drugs and they're not worried about it. But I think that it is interesting that that was what she was really worried about, people knowing about her, that she might have been on drugs or that she did take drugs or whatever. I mean, you only have to see some of the old clips of her show. I mean, she is wired. I've never seen somebody who's just leaping and lurching and, jumping and hopping. The only answer for that is cocaine. I mean, she is crazy in some of those episodes.
I love it when fun things happen. I love this.
Television every day is where you'll get to know her, and she's confident you'll get to like her.
Anyway, this is interesting, though. It's weird to me that she would care so much if people knew that her brother was gay. I mean, she's not gay, except for maybe she was. This lesbian affair stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, if it's somebody else's indiscretion and you don't agree with the lifestyle, it's not you. So what do you care? You're not your gay brother, but maybe you are your gay self. And maybe that was what she was more concerned about people finding out about. But this is the last thing I'll just say about what Judy has revealed. Isn't it wild that Judy would say that at the time I thought he was a great guy for not selling Oprah out, especially on drugs, which we were all doing in those days. Isn't it wild that when you are in the throes of some kind of like transgressive behavior, like her dating this married guy who was also extorting somebody for money, that you could convince yourself that this person's a great guy because you're like so adept at lying at yourself about the moral situation you're already in. It's not that great a leap in logic for you to also somehow paint this guy as a good person because he didn't let anybody know about her drug use. But somehow you have lost the intelligence necessary to see, yeah, because he's busy exploiting her and crying because of his kids and his bills, but then he just took you out to a party. Like, you can't compute that he's not a great guy for lying to Oprah about the necessity of money and then spending it all on you. Like, you don't see that, but it's like the choice to live and to make bad moral choices affects our intellect in a real substantial way. And I mean that seriously. I've talked about that so many times. When you are actively choosing moral decay, your ability to reason and to think clearly and to see things logically is completely crippled. Like, there are real prices you pay intellectually when you choose to live in transgression. And this is such a clear example of that. Anyway, continuing. Oprah never revealed Tim Watts by name as the man who had brought her so low in those years. Over the next 2 decades, she referred to him on television as a jerk, frequently telling her audience of the debasement she had endured because of him. I was in love. It was an obsession, she said. I was one of those sick women who believed that life was nothing without a man. The more he rejected me, the more I wanted him. I felt depleted and powerless. There's nothing worse than rejection. It's worse than death. I would wish sometimes for the guy to die because at least I could go to his grave and visit. I've been down on the floor, on my knees, crying so hard my eyes were swollen. And then it came to me. I realized there is no difference between me and an abused woman who has had to go to a shelter, except that I could stay home. The book says that one friend explained Oprah's obsession with Tim Watts and his rejection of her by citing Toni Morrison's novel A Mercy, in which a freed black man rejects a slave woman for not owning herself and for being a slave to her desire for him. Oprah tried to fight her own slave mentality by acknowledging through the years that she struggled not to surrender. There's always a teeny tiny little conflict that says maybe you already have enough. Why do you keep pushing? That comes from lack of self-esteem, from what I consider to be a slavery mentality. 3 years later, she was still fighting. Every year I ask God for something. Last year it was love. This year it's going to be freedom from everything that's kept me in bondage. Oprah is still raw from being rejected by Watts when she told Cosmopolitan magazine in 1986, "If I start to talk about it, I'll weep on the floor. But I tell you, I will never travel that road again. The next time somebody tells me he's no good for me, I'm going to believe him. I'm not going to say to myself, well, maybe I'm too pushy, or maybe I don't talk enough about him, or maybe. I'm not racing home to meet him there and then not hear from him until midnight. Too painful." Even when she was supposedly happy in a committed relationship with Stedman Graham, she continued to refer to her doormat days with Tim Watts. In 1994, she told Entertainment Weekly that she was reading her journal from that time and was chagrined by her pathetic musings. Maybe if I'm rich enough or famous enough or witty, wise, clever enough, I would be enough for you. This is a guy I used to take the seeds out of the watermelon for so he wouldn't have to spit. 20 years after the affair, she was still talking about him, unable to put the past to rest. In 2005, she told Tina Turner, I just ran across a letter I wrote in my 20s when I was in an emotionally abusive relationship. I'd written 12 pages to one of the great jerks of all time. I wanted to burn the letter. I want no record of the fact that I was ever so pitiful. In 2006, she told London's Daily Mail, I will never be in a position where I love someone else more than myself, where I give over my power to someone else. I will never be in a position where I get in my car and follow them to see if they're going where they said they are going. And I'll never be in a position where I'm looking in someone's pocket or their wallet or checking who they're on the phone with. And I will never be in the position where if they lie to me more than once, I don't end that relationship. But see, this is the great loss for Oprah. And we're going to see this pattern in her personality. Rather than investigate why a thing happened, she just writes it off. So she's written off the idea of a consuming love for somebody else, willing to put somebody else's needs before her own in the great act of sacrificial love. Because she had a bad experience with a man who never had any right to love her in the first place. He'd already given that to somebody else. He had a wife. So she has an affair with a married man. It goes horribly, as anyone could predict. And then she's like, love's a terrible thing. I will never put myself in a position of being debased like that. Well, I could agree with you if you said I'm never going to put myself in a position where I'm with a married man, because I will always be the loser in that situation. But she writes off love. Girl, you didn't have love. You are writing off a thing that was never the thing. Yeah, I'm never going to put another person before me. I'm never going to, be. I can understand her saying, I don't want to be in a position where I'm acting psychotic. But if you're in a real loving relationship with somebody who is unattached, who's available to love you, you don't have to act like a psycho. You know? During her affair with Watts, Oprah was living well in Baltimore, making $100,000 a year. She described herself then as young, attractive, and still slim. I had so much going for me, but I still thought I was nothing without a man. She'd moved into a pretty 2-bedroom apartment in Cross Keys and bought a BMW. I still remember one day we were hanging out and she transferred $5,000 from her savings account to her checking account just for the thrill of being able to do it, said Barbara Ham. Professionally, Oprah's star was shining. She and Richard Scher had become the toast of Baltimore as their show began outdrawing Phil Donahue's in local ratings. They were so successful that their producers decided to go for syndication, which for Oprah rang the bells of big money and national recognition. It was the main reason that she stayed at WJZ after her close friends Maria Shriver and Gayle King moved on to the bigger markets. Oprah and Richard shared the same agent, Ron Shapiro. That's Shapiro, the lawyer instructed. And she insisted that he write about her new contract, that if she wasn't working on a syndicated show, she could leave the station at the end of 2 years instead of 3. So confident was everyone of syndication's success that they signed off on the clause without objection. In March 1981, the staff of People Are Talking went to New York City for the annual National Association of Television Program Executives convention, where syndication deals are made. They rented a suite in the New York Hilton, decked out with signs that read, "The show that beats Donahue." Richard and Oprah held court with program executives from around the country and sold the show in Rockford, Illinois, Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Sacramento, California, with potential deals in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Bangor, Maine, Santa Rosa, California, and Casper, Wyoming. Unfortunately, none of the prospective buyers was a number 1 station offering a good time slot, but the producers still remained encouraged. In anticipation of national exposure, Arlene Weiner hired an image consultant to help Oprah achieve a more sophisticated look. Up to that point, she'd been shopping at funky little stores such as The Beat Experience. We were close to WJZ, a one-size-fits-all kind of store with gauzy, flowy tunics and caftans and palazzo pants, said Susan Rome, who was 16 years old when she helped Oprah. I tried to get her away from always buying fat lady clothes in dark colors because she wasn't really fat, just a bit chunky and thick, but she was very uncomfortable with her size. When the paid image consultant arrived, she met Oprah at her apartment and tore through her closet. There was a little trepidation on her part in the beginning, which is only natural for someone who's been directed to update her style and improve her image. We retired all her beiges and camels and got her into jewel tones and clothes that fit better and were more flattering to her full figure. The show also began booking more celebrities for a broader appeal, which gave Oprah the chance to meet and interview Muhammad Ali, Maya Angelou, Pearl Bailey, Dick Cavett, Uri Geller, Jesse Jackson, Ted Koppel, Barry Levinson, and Arnold Schwarzenegger. People Are Talking also became a major stop for authors on book promotion tours. I remember being interviewed by Oprah the day after Ronald Reagan was elected president, said the writer Paul Dixon. During a commercial break, she talked about how awful Reagan was going to be for the country. She was very upset. "This man will not be good for my people," she said. But she said nothing on air because she was prohibited by contract from publicly expressing any political opinions. Within 6 months, it became clear to the producers that syndication was not going to happen. At its peak, the show was aired by only 17 stations. Despite Oprah's great warmth on air, People Are Talking was simply too parochial to go national. The general manager after me was Art Kern, and he sold the show to half a dozen stations, but there was resistance within Westinghouse, said William F. Baker, by then chairman of Group W. The guy in Hollywood below me did not think Oprah would make it as a talk show host. I told Baltimore we were not to lose Oprah because she was a massive asset, but Baltimore was our smallest station, and so the one I paid least attention to. On Monday, September 7th, 1981, the dreaded headline appeared in the TV and radio section of the Baltimore Sun. People Are Talking flops as syndicated show. Richard Scher was disappointed, but Oprah was devastated. This was her second big public failure in Baltimore. That evening, she had another row with Tim Watts, and he walked out on her, slamming the door on her hand. "The problem with you, baby doll, is you think you're special," he said. As Oprah recalled, she was on the floor crying, "I'm not. Please, I don't think I'm special. I don't. Please come back." And then, as I went to pick myself up, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and I saw an image of my mother. And I remember her screaming one night when her boyfriend had left her. And I remember my cousin Alice saying, "It's all right, he's coming back." That same cousin was in an abusive relationship. Her boyfriend had knocked her down the stairs and broken her legs and arms, and she still took him back. I saw myself through their eyes in that mirror. I always said that I would not be a battered woman. I would not be screaming for some man. And when I heard myself saying, "Come back, I don't think I'm special," I'd become that. I got myself up, washed my face, and said, "That is it." That plays well for a camera to be like, and that was my turning moment. But, this whole conversation she's having, 20 years later, she's still talking about the, abusive relationship was in, and this horrible boyfriend that she had, and that he was this big jerk, and et cetera, et cetera. If that is it, then that would be it. You'd be like, "I'm never talking about it anymore. I'm done with that. He was a loser. I know it now." And I move on. But she liked that story because it's this triumphant moment where you come to the end of yourself and you realize in your own power and strength, you suddenly come to this revelation that you don't have to live like this. You were your own savior in that moment. Yes, you'd kind of like fallen off by letting him treat you like that. But then you saw yourself for what you were, And that story was too useful for the image that she wanted other people to have of hers, to let it be a private moment. It needed to always be trotted out when she had to describe herself as this person who's just like you, on the floor crying about a man, but she's different than you because she's not pathetic. She got her act together. At 8:30 p.m. on September 8, 1981, she wrote a note to Gayle King saying that personally and professionally, her life did not seem worth living. "I'm so depressed I want to die," she wrote. She told Gayle where to find her will and her insurance policies. "I even told her to water my plants," Oprah said later. She told the writer Barbara Grizzuti Harrison that she had not considered the ways and means to accomplish her death. "I didn't even have the courage to end the relationship," she said. Years later, Gayle returned the note to Oprah, who said, "I see it now as a cry of self-pity. I never would have had the courage to do it." She told her audience, "The whole idea that you're going to kill yourself and they're all going to be mourning, that's not really the reality. I realized that if he even came to my funeral, he would go on with the other girl and on with his life and still be happy." The 1-2 punch of losing syndication plus the love of her life seemed unbearable at the time. Her friends were concerned enough to keep a quiet suicide watch, and one gently suggested that she seek psychotherapy, but Oprah refused. "I was so adamant about being my own person that I wouldn't go for counseling," she said. Her only solace was her star status in Baltimore. She was known and loved throughout the city, said WJZ's former executive producer Eileen Solomon. In that era, Baltimore was still pretty much a town that saw itself in the shadow of Washington, D.C., with more of a blue-collar sensibility. And Oprah was its queen. "She was a very big deal here," said Bob Leffler. "And we're a sports town, where the biggest celebrities are baseball and football stars. I remember seeing Oprah at Ron Shapira's spring party, where everyone ignored legendary Orioles like Eddie Murray and Jim Palmer and flocked to her. Now that's saying something for Baltimore." As a testament to Oprah's popularity, she was chosen by the students at Goucher, a prestigious women's college in Maryland, to deliver the commencement address in 1981, a huge honor for a 27-year-old woman, only 5 years older than most of the graduates. She spoke to them about her dreams as a little girl growing up in Mississippi and wanting what they had, the chance to go to a fine school, to graduate, and to begin life with the full expectation that all her dreams would come true. "When I became old enough or wise enough to know I couldn't be just like you, I wanted to be Diana Ross or just be somebody supreme." Finally, she said she realized that wasn't going to be possible either, so she learned to accept the numerators that set her apart: sex, race, education, talent, economics, family background. She said that even with all of the differences that separated her from them, they were more alike than unalike in their struggle to be good human beings. She said the struggle was harder for them as women, powerless in a man's world. As if advertising herself, she urged the graduates to nurture themselves. "Because, unlike our mothers, we know that by the time we're middle-aged, we have more than a 50% chance of never being married, divorced, widowed, or separated. So there's no denying the obvious. We have to take care of ourselves." Her experience as an emotionally abused woman seemed to inform her speech. "I found myself one black woman rendered powerless, being preyed upon by other people who were not only unreasonable but just unfair. Powerless because I kept trying to be liked by people who didn't even like themselves. Powerless because I believed the world was one big popularity contest that I had to win or accept failure as a woman, as a human being." Having grown up watching the Donna Reed show, Oprah gently pricked the fantasy balloon of girls like herself who imagined themselves growing up, becoming Donna Reed and living happily ever after as wives and mothers. She told them not to believe that Mr. Right was the answer to their prayers. She recited a Carolyn Rogers poem about lonely women who are powerless because they judge their self-worth by the kind of man they attract. She spoke of the inequalities facing women in the marketplace, making less money than men in same jobs. Having experienced a secret unwanted pregnancy, she chided the men who made policies that deny women the right to choose what to do with their own bodies. She did not use the word abortion, but she said those same men were denying women equality, rendering them powerless. Her wealthy white audience cheered when she repeated the words of slaves, "Ain't nobody free till we all is free." She recited Maya Angelou's poem, Phenomenal Woman, and concluded with the proud words of Sojourner Truth. "Everywhere I go, people wants to talk to me about this woman's rights. I tells them just like I'm telling you now. It seems to me if one woman, Eve, was able to turn this world upside down all by herself, then all us women's in here together ought to be able to turn it right side up. And now that we's asking to do it, y'all men's better let us." The ovation was long and loud and, according to this author, deserved. While Oprah would deliver many more commencement addresses over the years, none would be as heartfelt as that first one. I have to say, I think that this speech was the literal worst. We don't have time for me to go into all of why I think this is a horrific message for girls who are about to leave and go into the workplace, but where was the redemption in this? Except for these vagaries about if one woman can tear down the world, the rest of us can lift it up, and men better get out of the way because we have something to offer. Of course we have something to offer. No one can nurture like a woman. No one can build a home out of nothing like a woman. We are intelligent. We are wise. We have an intuition. Like, there are so many wonderful, beautiful things about being women. Like, why would you tell a whole group of girls who are just about to launch into the world how the whole world is arrayed against them? Basically, like lambs to the slaughter, young ladies, but we can hope, right? Let's join hands and at least walk into the slaughter as one united body. There's so many things that are so wonderful about being a woman. I wouldn't be a man if you paid me. It's like, for all of the power in the world, I would never be a man. Why? Being a woman is awesome. There are so many things to being a woman. Like, the secret power of being a woman is something a man will never know. It's just like inherently a powerful position. There's no power stronger in this world than beauty. And I'm not even talking about physical beauty. Like, there's something really beautiful about like a really competent woman who's like really good at what she's doing. Like, that is inherently sexy. You know what I'm saying? It's like, why would you want to train these women to like go out and think that the world's right against them? No, you're going out as like literally the most powerful person in the world. You know, just mind your business and do the best that you can do in whatever task has been set before you. And like, you will own the world. Not that that should be our sole objective, but I'm just saying, like, women are not powerless creatures. And to suppose and to act as though the world is arrayed against us is so much bullshit I cannot even. To continue. Around this time, Oprah and Judy Coulter-Yawn had to deal with the news of their lover getting his wife Donna pregnant and having a second son. Oh gosh, who saw that coming? Him impregnating his wife? Not that. Later, Tim Watts would have another child with a woman who was not his wife, so I guess there's a third affair partner. Court records indicate that he had 2 children out of wedlock, plus 2 children with Donna, who eventually divorced him. When his daughter was born on Oprah's birthday, January 29th, Tim told me that Oprah took it as a sign that she'd been forgiven by God. What are you talking about? Why would that be a sign? So his wife has a daughter and Oprah makes that about herself? Oh, that's a sign of God's forgiveness. How so, Oprah? But Judy Coulter said that she herself had to terminate a pregnancy, and she thinks Oprah did too. And Judy says that Oprah became the child's honorary godmother, and when her dog had puppies, she flew Tim and the little girl to New York City to give them a puppy. Tim showed me the pictures of all of them standing outside the Waldorf Astoria Hotel. Donna, why did you take so long to drag your feet getting rid of this guy, Tim? I mean, he's literally being flown by his mistress to New York City so that they can accept the gift of a puppy. The mistress is the honorary godmother of the daughter that she is assuming God gave to Tim as a sign of her forgiveness for having been involved. Like, what? Convoluted. What did I tell you about the intellect being dulled when we are walking around in the worlds of transgressions? Anyway, in spite of her previous resolve, Oprah resumed her rocky relationship with Watts in 1981, but this time she tried to protect herself with a workload that would leave less time to think about him. Also, I'm confused. So, Oprah's affair partner has a daughter. Oprah sees that daughter as a sign from God that she is forgiven. But then she proceeds to kick the relationship back up, and now she and Tim are back together again. Does Tim have to have another child in order for God to forgive this set of sins? I mean, like, what? If you were aching for God's forgiveness, and to such an extent that you would misinterpret his daughter being born as a sign that God is forgiving you, why would you then rush to go get back into the bed with Tim? I don't get it. Okay, but anyway. Oprah decides she's going to stay busy at work, right? She can't give Tim all of her time, just some of it. She says, I remember waiting for phone calls and being afraid to run the bathwater because I wouldn't hear the phone. Still, she woke up on her 28th birthday and wept for hours because she had no one with whom to share her life. From 1982 to 1983, she appeared on the air 3 times a day. She did the early morning news, the hour talk show, and then the noon news, said Eileen Solomon. That's an incredible amount of work every day. And she did it. And she won all her time slots against the competition. By 1983, Oprah had to decide whether to renew her contract with WJZ and stay a big star in a small sky or try to find another job. She was torn, especially after Deborah DeMaio, her favorite producer, left for Chicago. When Oprah was poised to sign a new contract, DeMaio called and begged her to hold off. She said a great job was opening up because Rob Weller was leaving AM Chicago. For God's sake, don't sign yet. DeMaio urged her to send a tape and resume to WLS, and on Labor Day, Oprah flew to Chicago for a formal interview. Beforehand, she sat in her hotel room and watched the show. I'd never seen it before, she said, adding that she was not impressed. They baked cookies and gave you the latest in mascara techniques. When she went for her interview, she told WLS management their show was no good. It's too frivolous. I'm best at combinations. Sexual surrogate one day, Donnie and Maria Osmond the next day, then the Klan. The general manager, Dennis Swanson, had already made up his mind about hiring Oprah, but just to make sure, he auditioned her by setting up an interview with a group of sexually impotent men. Then he told her to reminisce on camera about her deprived childhood and her time as a teenage runaway. Her astute merger of prurience and uplift proved irresistible, wrote Peter Conrad in The Observer. Offered the job on the spot, she jumped at it. The country's third market, my own show. Dennis Swanson was also dizzy with delight. He was like a kid in a candy store, recalled Wayne S. Kabach, then vice president of the talent agency ICM. I traveled to Chicago to visit a client I represented named Candace Hasey, who hosted WLS's morning show. I stopped by to visit Swanson, her boss, who told me that he had some bad news. He was going to fire Candy because he had found an extraordinarily talented replacement who he thought would become a huge star. Notwithstanding that I was sitting in his office feeling rather downtrodden about Candy's fate, Dennis was so excited about his discovery that he insisted on showing me the tape of the woman who was replacing my client. He put the tape in the machine showing Oprah in Baltimore, and in a flash, I knew he was right. If any executive should have reaped the huge rewards of Oprah when she finally hit syndication, it was Dennis, who sadly did not because the laws at the time prevented companies who owned networks from syndicating shows. Since ABC owned WLS, syndication rights were dealt to King World, which made hundreds of millions, if not more, from Oprah. After her audition, she returned to Baltimore and called Ron Shapiro to negotiate her new contract. WJZ tried to keep her with inducements of a bigger salary. WLS was offering $200,000 a year. They said they'd give her a company car and a new apartment. No one wanted her to go, said Eileen Solomon, and some tried to pressure her by saying that she'd never make it on her own in Chicago. Bill Baker, then the chairman of Group W, called, "Oprah, you can't leave WJZ. He said, "Baltimore is your home. You're the leading lady of the city. You must stay." But Oprah had made her decision. Baker said that he saw to it that Paul Yates, the general manager, was fired for letting her go. Bill Carter felt that Oprah would succeed in Chicago, but he acknowledged that others did not. There was an undercurrent of feeling here that this woman was not all that special, he said. I guess because people are used to turning on their television sets and seeing nothing but attractive women, sexy or whatever. They really didn't see that substance in her. I think there's an element of racism in that. Oprah's a very black-looking black woman. They were expecting that she would flop in Chicago. I think if people thought Oprah wasn't going to be successful, it had nothing to do with the fact that she was a black woman. I mean, am I just living so far away from these racist times that I can't even conceive that that would be a motivating factor? I think if people didn't think she'd succeed, it's because she's kind of crazy. Literally. She's kind of an intense personality. I don't know what that one guy was talking about who's she's real calm. She would be nice over a cup of coffee in the morning. Are we watching the same show? This is a person who's flinging her arms up and running down the aisles and gyrating on stage as she does exercises with Richard Simmons. She was a lot to take. So if people thought she wasn't going to succeed, I think it's because in a show with just herself, she didn't have sort of the calming presence of a Richard Scher who was the straight face to her crazy. You almost need a straight face to her crazy. But I mean, what do I know? Because she went on to succeed extraordinarily. Granted, she was talking about topics that are so tawdry and shocking that it's almost who's not tuning into that? Because wait, what is she saying? That's insane. To continue. Seeing that he was losing her, Paul Yates would not release her until her contract expired at the end of the year. Then he played rough. "There's no way you can make it in Chicago up against Donahue," he said. "It's his home base. You're walking into a landmine and you can't even see it. You're committing career suicide. You're going to fail." Yates, an African-American, said Chicago was a racist city that had not been entirely welcoming to its first black mayor, Harold Washington, and certainly wouldn't be welcoming to her. But Oprah had already factored race into her decision. "I made a deliberate choice about where to go," she said. "Los Angeles? I'm black and female, and they don't work in L.A. Orientals and Hispanics are their minorities. New York? I don't like New York, period. Washington? There's 13 women to every man in D.C. Forget it. I have enough problems. Chicago, the third largest television market in the country, seemed ideal. It's a big little town, sort of cosmopolitan country. The energy is different than Baltimore. It's more like New York, but you're not overwhelmed like in New York." Having decided to make the move, she now had to wait 4 months to finish her contract in Baltimore before starting her new job. I thought the Chicago show might not survive without a host for that long. I started eating. First I ate to celebrate getting the job, and then I ate out of insecurity. If I failed in Chicago, I could say it was because I was fat. By the time she got to Chicago, she'd gained 40 pounds. 40 pounds in 4 months. "I was hired to take Oprah's place as co-anchor of People Are Talking," said Beverly Burke, a television news reporter from North Carolina, and it was a huge compliment to me. But Oprah was great. She took me to lunch at a deli in Cross Keys and told me how the show worked. She talked candidly about Richard Scher and said that he was Mr. Television, always on, and would totally dominate the show, but that he was very good at what he does and quite professional. If it weren't for Oprah, I wouldn't have gotten that job. If not for her success, they would have been looking for a white co-anchor. Still, it was a huge adjustment for me, but I didn't feel I had to be Oprah. She'd never been an In the Trenches reporter, which was more my style. Oprah was flash. She was criticized for showing up to do a news story wearing a fur coat. In the weeks before she left, Richard Scher teased Oprah on the air. "She's leaving us behind and she'll forget all about us in no time. Remember where you got your start?" Beverly Burke saw an edge to his teasing. She was leaving him behind and everybody knew it. But unlike others at the station, Scher encouraged Oprah. "I thought the move would be great for her," he said years later. "I knew she'd become as big a star as she's become." As a going-away present, Oprah gave him a gold Rolex watch, on the back of which she had engraved Ope, 1978 to 1983. I think that's interesting that you would give somebody a Rolex watch and then put your own name on the back with the dates inscribed that they knew you. That just seems kind of self-centered. If I were going to give somebody a Rolex watch, I feel like I would have inscribed something about how much I enjoyed working with them, or like a quote that was inspirational, or something that would have some meaning. But like to put my nickname and the dates that they knew me on the back seems really self-centered. Is that just me? Or am I being really nitpicky? I can be that way sometimes when I'm like so entrenched in a story and so disliking the protagonist. I'm like, nothing they can do is right. Maybe that's typical. Maybe that's normal. Tell me in the comments. The decision to leave Baltimore was the most important of Oprah's life, and she never forgot who encouraged her and who tried to hold her back. She remained close to Richard Scher, spoke at his synagogue, and even attended his 60th birthday party. Publicly, she said that she would be forever grateful to Bill Baker for giving her the start, but inexplicably, she never spoke to him again. Despite his illustrious rise to broadcasting to becoming the president of WNET Public Television in New York. Upon his retirement in 2007, he was celebrated with a magazine of tributes from networks and esteemed television colleagues. Bill Moyers, Charlie Rose, Joan Gans Cooney, Newton Minow, and Bill Wright. But there was no tribute from Oprah Winfrey. She never spoke to Paul Yates again either, but when Skip Ball, an engineer at WJZ, was dying, she flew to Baltimore to spend time with him in the hospital. In December 1983, the station threw her a farewell party at Café d'Artiste in Baltimore, which her mother, Vernita Lee, attended with Oprah's brother Jeffrey. All of WJZ's on-air stars showed up. Jerry Turner, Al Sanders, Bob Turk, Don Scott, Marty Bass, and Richard Scher. Paul Yates presented her with a Cuisinart, a photo album of her days at the station, a basket full of her favorite ballpoint pens, and a 25-inch Sony Trinitron television. But the gift that brought her to tears was the life-sized Oprah doll wearing a copy of her favorite dress made by Jorge Gonzalez, the station's makeup artist and graphic designer. What is she going to do with that? A life-sized Oprah doll? I mean, creative use of your time, Jorge, but what does one do with that? In her farewell speech, Oprah thanked everyone and praised Baltimore as the place where she grew up and became a woman. She then called Beverly Burke to the stage, gave her a warm introduction, wagged her finger at the crowd, telling them to be nice to her. Days later, she packed up her 5 coats from Mono Swartz Furs and headed for Chicago, while Tim Watts quietly left town for Los Angeles to try to become a stand-up comic. This guy really is living in a world of delusion. For the next 5 months, they planned to see each other on weekends, with Oprah flying back and forth to the West Coast. So leaving Baltimore was not as wrenching as she had anticipated. In fact, the future looked bright. Arlene Weiner drove her to the airport and kissed her goodbye, shouting down the terminal, "I hope you make it, hon. I hope you make it." She'll make it. I love that chapter. I thought it was exceedingly interesting. I thought it was full of the juiciest of the tidbits. But if you thought that was good, you are going to be smacked senseless with tomorrow and Thursday's episodes. So stay tuned, and I'll see you then. Bye.